The box arrived on a Wednesday. It wasn't expected. No order confirmation, no package tracking, no note slipped under the door saying you have a delivery. It was simply there, a brown cardboard parcel sitting neatly against the apartment door, taped shut but faintly bulging in the center as though the contents were too large, too alive, for the thin skin of cardboard that caged it. Maya bent down and turned it over, scanning for a return address. There was none. The label bore only her name, scrawled in crude, shaky handwriting, as if written by someone and used to holding a pen. Her apartment number was right, her name spelled perfectly, yet she hadn't ordered anything. Probably a mistake, she muttered to herself, but even as she said it, she knew it wasn't. The package felt heavy in her arms as she carried it inside. Solid, but not dense, something like a body, soft yet resistant, shifting slightly in the box as though unsettled by her grip. She set it on the kitchen counter, grabbed scissors, and slit the tape. The smell hit her first. Not rot, not exactly, but something damp, like wet fur left to mildew in the sun. She pulled back the cardboard flaps, heart thudding against her ribs, and froze. Inside, wrapped in a thin sheet of yellowed tissue paper, was a Labubu doll. It was almost grotesque in its proportions, those two wide eyes gleaming like dark glass marbles, the toothy grin stretching impossibly long across its face. Its fur, a dirty grayish-brown, was matted in places, uneven, as if it had been plucked and then grown back patchy. The thing was small enough to sit on her lap, but large enough that its presence filled the room. Maya shivered. She hated dolls. Always had. Something about the way they stared, the uncanny mimicry of humanity without warmth. But this one was worse. It looked hungry. There was no note in the box, no instructions, no receipt, just the Labubu doll, smiling with that sharp, animalistic row of teeth. That night, she set it on the living room shelf, as far out of sight as she could. She planned to throw it away in the morning, maybe leave it by the dumpster for some curious scavenger. But as she lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, she could swear she heard it. A soft scratching noise. Then the faint thump of something heavy shifting. Her eyes darted to her phone. Midnight. She lived alone. No pets. No visitors. Old pipes, she whispered, though the words didn't convince her. Eventually, exhaustion pulled her under. When she woke, the doll was no longer on the shelf. It sat at the foot of her bed. Her scream tore through the apartment. She kicked the blanket off and scrambled backward, nearly toppling off the mattress. The doll stared up at her, that eternal grin fixed in place, its glassy eyes reflecting her own terror. Maya grabbed it, heart hammering, and shoved it back into the box. She taped the lid shut with layers of packing tape and carried it out into the hallway. At the far end of the corridor was the trash chute. She didn't hesitate. She dropped the box in and listened until the hollow clang of it hitting the bottom echoed up to her. Gone. She exhaled, shaking. Done. Finished. The day passed in a fog. Work calls, errands, scrolling through social media just to distract herself. But every so often, she felt the urge to glance at the door, as if something might be waiting. When midnight came again, Maya lay tense in bed, every muscle coiled. That was when she heard it. The scratching, the thumping, the faint, high-pitched giggle. Slowly, with ice in her veins, she turned her head toward the doorway. The box sat there, taped shut, its sides bulging as if something inside were pressing against it. Over the next days, things grew worse. She tried throwing the doll away again, this time leaving it on the curb, far from the building. The next morning, it was on her couch. She left it at a donation center. That night, it was in her fridge, sitting between the milk and the eggs, its fur wet with condensation. She even drove it 30 miles out of town and dumped it in a ditch. When she returned home, it was waiting by the door, box damp with mud. The doll could not be rid of, and it was growing bolder. At night, she heard it moving, scurrying along the floorboards, padding across the rug. Once, half asleep, she felt a weight press onto her chest, and when she opened her eyes, it was crouched inches from her face, teeth gleaming, eyes wide and wet. She fainted, waking hours later with bruises shaped like small hands on her arms. The final straw came on the 7th night. Maya woke to a sound not of scratching, not of thumping, but of whispering. A low, rasping hiss that slithered into her ears. She sat up. The doll was not on the floor. Not at the foot of her bed. Not on the shelf. It was in her closet. She saw its silhouette between the slats of the door, those long ears, that bulbous head, that too wide grin. The whispering grew louder, and though she couldn't make out words, she knew it was speaking to her. Something inside her snapped. She grabbed the heavy metal lamp from her nightstand, yanked the closet door open, and smashed it down onto the doll's head. Once. Twice. Again and again until the grin cracked and the glass eye shattered, black shards scattering across the carpet. Chest heaving, she looked down at the mangled body. Its stuffing spilled out, fur torn, head crushed in. Finally, it was over, or so she thought. The next morning, Maya awoke to silence. No scratching. No whispers. The closet floor was bare except for tufts of stuffing and a few glass shards. Relief washed over her in a dizzying wave. She cleaned up the remains, dumped them into a garbage bag, and carried it all the way to the dumpster behind the building. She watched the truck come that afternoon, crushing the bag into nothing with the rest of the trash. That night, she slept soundly for the first time in a week. Until 3:33 a.m., she woke to the feeling of breath against her ear. Slow, wet, rhythmic, and then a whisper. "Thank you for letting me out." Her eyes snapped open. The room was pitch black. She fumbled for her phone, turned on the flashlight, and froze. The doll was gone, but the footprints weren't. Tiny, muddy prints tracked across the floor, up the side of her bed, across the sheets, and onto her chest. They stopped at her neck. She dropped the phone. In the dark, something giggled. The Labubu doll no longer needed its body. And now, it was free.